In many of my videos, I end up being an apologist for the Trump administration's policies. However, I'm still very much a libertarian. Now, there are many people, libertarians included, who kind of take phraseology in what shall we say is a pedantic manner. Or they so desperately wanted some policy to happen that they imagine it was promised and is now not being followed in the America First agenda. Now, without research, America First is going to create an image in your head. It's a lot like buying products which are all natural. If you don't bother doing the research or looking at the ingredients list and just trust all natural as your guide source, um, you'll discover that the food you're eating probably isn't as healthy remotely as you think it is. America First has an ingredients list too that needs to be looked up. You can't just look at the words and go, "It's America First, so I'm going to read it the way I want to." Sorry, it's a bit of a slogan, and you have to read it. You have to read the details. So the thing is, from the beginning, I pretty much saw and understood what Trump was trying to do. And when I say Trump, I mean the Trump administration. So I can explain what I see while still being opposed to or skeptical of what is being done. Many libertarian thinkers have been so inculcated in globalist thought, they often are oblivious to the fact that many elements of globalist agenda essentially make libertarianism almost impossible. I am pragmatic. As a package, Trump's liberal nationalist populism has many problems, but it's far superior to globalist left wing regressive totalitarianism. Israel. Oh boy. My God, people, this is not as hard as you're making it out to be. If you say Trump's Israel policies are Israel first, you probably have a serious issue with Jew derangement syndrome. So let me stupid it down for the autistic wing of the Libertarian Party. What happens if the US suddenly cut ties to Israel? First, they would lose the ability to militarily defend themselves, conventionally. And so, how does Israel survive when they clearly are willing to survive at pretty much any cost, and they now lack a viable military to do this? Well, they have these things called nuclear weapons. Now, on one hand, yes, we want to be mostly disengaged from the interlocking agreements of the world. We don't want to be involved in everybody's wars. We don't want to be involved in the diplomatic results of all this stuff. However, you also have to look at what happens when you disengage. Is the disengagement cause such egregious problems that it's better to have something in place of nothing? So instead of going from totally involved to completely uninvolved, maybe there's stages in between. So what happens if Israel is down to the fact where they only have nukes as their primary response to pressures and problems in the region? Well, they're going to use their nukes. Is that what we really want in the end? And by the way, the people who have problems with Israel are the ones who frequently refer to them as genocidal Neanderthals. So on one hand, you can't sit there and say they're brutal thugs, and on the other, go, "Oh, they would never use nukes." I think they would in the situation. And, apologies to my Neanderthal ancestors for using them as an example. Now, the Abraham Accords spell out a roadmap that's fairly distinct. The idea is to create a military and economic partnership between Israel and the Arab states. And by the way, if you're going, "Well, that'll never happen," it actually is happening if you're paying attention to the news. The Arab states are as concerned or more concerned about Iran than they are Israel at this point. So the Abraham Accords would link Israel and the Arab states together overtly as a bulwark against Iran. And likely it's also a deterrent against future Turkish desires on the region, as Turkey is gaining in prominence and is getting less coupled to the Western sphere. Now, Israel, if it were partnered with the Arab states, is a more secure Israel. In theory, they would need less U.S. support. This would allow the U.S. to significantly pull back since Israel and the Arab states would now be dependent on each other for their security. Now, some people will say, well, Israel's existence isn't really at stake. Well, it doesn't matter what you think. Israel's existence, the threat to it, this existential threat idea, is actually part of their national mythology. So they believe imminent extinction is almost always present. So they're always going to be looking for a security blanket of some kind. So if America First isn't what you think it is, what do I think it is? I believe America First is an attempt to steer America away from a globalist agenda that makes America an equal amongst peers. That's the idea where America gets one vote and Liechtenstein gets one vote. Trump and his adherents don't have free reign to make this realignment. Ultimately, the eventual stopping spot is where the majority of our establishment has consensus. That point is never going to be some form of isolation, nor is it going to be some kind of go it alone policy. And it's not really on the table and never has been. The goal is a global establishment that has significantly reduced power, one that's subservient to nation states. The goal of America First is that nation states communicate and bargain with each other bilaterally rather than as parts of collective organizations. Also, that deals that are economic and diplomatic in nature do not erode America's economic or diplomatic standing and possibly even improve them. It's not a perfect outcome for a libertarian, but it's far better than the one we were at. And I'll fully admit to you, Israel firsters are truly obnoxious people, and so are Gaza firsters. And if that term ruffles you, it should, because that's basically you're walking around being equally as annoying as the Israel firsters, but you're actually oblivious to the fact you're doing it. I have no affinity whatsoever for Israel or the Palestinians. If for some reason, let's say we could just basically teleport everybody who's in the region of Israel and the occupied states and just put them on two different planets someplace where they can't fight each other. Nice habitable planets. Let's make it a friendly analogy. If for some reason you just made all these people go someplace far, far away, suddenly, the economic impact to the United States would be negligible. This is an area that produces little, and what little they produce would never be missed. Even when we're talking about foreign aid to Israel, the amount we give them is less than a rounding error in the US budget, never mind the entire US economy. And I don't really care if Israel or the Palestinians are more justified because of past issues in history. I don't care who you think has more been wronged in the past. I don't care who tugs at your underdog heartstrings more. If you're using America First terminology and Gaza versus Israel is your point where you break ranks, you're an idiot. You have a serious problem making priorities. Yes, war is really, really bad. I'd like to see it end. But pulling out of the region isn't going to make it end, it's going to make more. Oppression in foreign nations is horrible, but it ranks dead last in my concerns about what was and is going on in America. Foreign aid, philosophically, is an egregious affront to the American taxpayer. I would really like to see it go away. Yet, it's less than 1% of the US budget. Israel is less than 6% of that 1% of the budget. So, how bad I feel about foreign aid in relationship to how bad some actual problems are resolved on the basis of the size of the problem, not how I feel about it. In other words, if they offered to get rid of foreign aid tomorrow, I would definitely take it. If they pretty much looked at anything else on the budget and looked to eliminate it in a significant manner and said, well, you can have one or the other, I would take whatever's bigger. And because foreign aid is so small, although it bothers me, it doesn't bother me a lot. So here's reality: Israel isn't going away. The Palestinian Arabs are politically and militarily weak. They will never achieve equal status on their own, and no rational actor is ever going to give it to them. Israel will never be allowed to destabilize as long as they have nukes, and they're never going to give them up. If you are a Gaza first person, you're not rational. Rational is stabilize the nuclear power that is Israel, create a secure environment via the Abraham Accords so that America can pay more attention to issues at home. Is this going to work? No telling. The Middle East has made fools of pretty much everyone trying to implement policy there. So I don't necessarily have a hope in that it's going to happen the way they plan. But I think it would be an improvement. But again, even if it works exactly the way they hope it does, no telling what the long term outcomes are as well. So, in the comment section below, how do you feel about the whole Israel thing? Are you sick to death of hearing about it? I am. Please smash the like button. Uh, if you don't subscribe and YouTube algorithm has brought you here, check out my other titles. I get into a lot of stuff. Subscribing will be worth your while. And if you know someone who might find this interesting, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.